All right, this is Monday, August 17th. British Literature with Classic Movies, Mandy K Willoughby. I'm sorry, not too far. All right, the Cartwright clip. Anytime that I start talking about Cartwright in this book, my head immediately goes to a Seinfeld episode. They're in the Chinese restaurant, and George Costanza, um, the the hostess or host is actually a guy, um, calls out Cartwright instead of Costanza. And every time I talk about this book, I have a tendency to go Cartwright, Cartwright, but this is where I get it from.
There seems to be a bit of a discrepancy.
So when are we going to eat?
5 10 minutes. She was left earlier. I told you. I don't see any way we can eat and make this movie.
Oh, well, I have to eat.
Well, let's just order it to go. We'll eat it in the cab.
Eat it in the cab. Chinese food in a cab?
We'll eat it in the movie.
What? Where do you think you're going? Do you think that they have big picnic tables there?
Well, what do you suggest?
I say we leave now, we go to Sky Burger, and we scarf them down.
I'm not going to Sky Burger. Besides, it's in the opposite direction. Let's just eat popcorn or something.
All right? I can't have popcorn for dinner.
All right.
We have to eat.
Well, they have hot dogs there.
Oh, movie hot dogs. I'd rather lick the food off the floor.
I can't go anyway. I have to wait here for Tatiana's call. Let me just check. Excuse me, I'm expecting a call. Costanza?
Yes, I just got a call. I yell, Cartwright, Cartwright, just like that. Nobody came up. I hang up.
Was it for Costanza or?
Yes, that's it. Nobody answered.
Was it a woman?
Yes. I tell her, you're not here. She said curse word. I hang up.
She called. He yelled Cartwright. I missed it. Who's Cartwright? I'm Cartwright. You're not Cartwright.
Of course I'm not Cartwright.
Okay, this has no value whatsoever to the book. It's just letting you into my brain a little bit here. Okay, so chapters 5 through 9 are being discussed today. So, the tone. What is the tone of this book? Another way to phrase tone or to get a different meaning would be what is the mood of this book? Now, this is different than genre. So, the tone would be dark, gloomy, kind of cold. Um, Gothic would be another term that's been used. The setting is going to be where this is happening. What part of the world? What part of um, well, let's start with that. Let's start with the world. It's in London. The opening scene is in London. Um, you've got Sherlock is in his office. We have a hotel in London, and then it moves to a train station into the hillside where the Baskerville Manor is, and so we get a description of what it looks like and the Grampen Mire and Baskerville Hall. This would all be our settings. Now, genre, which often gets mixed up with tone, genre would be for this particular story is going to be mystery. You might also hear suspense or thriller. Um, Other genres would include musicals, comedies, drama, and some of those will get pushed together, and you might have a musical comedy or a comedy suspense. So some of those get pushed together, but that's what genre means. And then the narrator we discussed last week, just to remind you, is Watson. All right, so we have new characters in chapter 5. We have a cab driver named John Clayton. Um, So in chapter 5, question 1, Sir Henry now has his brown new boot. Well, he doesn't necessarily have it back yet, but he put out his black boots now to be cleaned and washed up, and he's missing one of his black boots. Okay. We also have the cab driver. Sherlock has asked for the cab driver to come back to his office. He wants to, question him. And the cab driver says his passenger claimed to be Sherlock Holmes himself. So the real Sherlock Holmes, of course, thinks, wow, that was really intelligent of whoever this man is to tell this cab driver that he's Sherlock Holmes, because he knew that he would eventually find out who was in that cab and who did the cab driver say was with him. So he just said Sherlock Holmes. Who goes with Sir Henry Baskerville to the manor? It's Watson, but it's also Mortimer. Watson and Mortimer go with Henry to the manor. Now, when the three of them, oh no, that's the next question. Hang on. So, what is discovered under a cabinet in Sir Henry's hotel room after the men have finished eating lunch? So, I'm gonna go ahead and click. So we have the missing boot. So we have the brown new boot has been found under a cabinet. You can almost imagine someone open the door, throw the boot in, and it slides and goes up underneath the cabinet. So he now has his 2 new brown boots, but he still is missing 1 black boot. Okay, so when chapter 6, we have new characters, John and Eliza Barrymore. They're spoken of. We know about them, but this is the first time they've actually come on the scene. So when Mortimer, Watson, and Henry arrive at the train station and down the road on their way to the manor, there's guards everywhere. Why? Why are there guards everywhere? There's a convict has escaped. And we do conclude, we are told that he has killed someone. So he's not just your random run-of-the-mill theft, robbery kind of thing. This is someone who we know is convicted and has murdered someone. What or who does Watson hear in the middle of the night? Now, I'm not talking about outside. We're talking about inside the house. So it's not the Hound. It's a woman crying. And the next morning, let me go back to that one. The next morning, Watson and Henry question John, the butler, who are all the women that are in the house? And he says, well, there's a scullery maid and Eliza, my wife, but it was not my wife. And we come to learn that John is lying about this, because when Watson and Henry see Eliza, her eyes are all puffy. She's obviously been crying. So we have suspicion thrown on the butler. All right, and in chapter 7, we have some new characters. We have Jack Stapleton and we have Beryl Stapleton. A lot of times from this chapter on, Jack Stapleton is referred only known as Stapleton. Was the telegraph really delivered to Mr. Barrymore, ensuring Holmes that Barrymore was in London and not the man in the cab? No. Mrs. Barrymore took the telegraph at the door. Who does Watson meet on his return walk from the post office? This is in the Grimpen Mire. He meets, Stapleton. That would be Jack Stapleton. If you remember, they have a conversation. Stapleton is kind of proud in the fact that he knows how to get across the Grimpen Mire without getting sucked into, those, I wouldn't call them, sinking sand or stuff like that, but that's kind of the visual I have in my head, where you just kind of get sucked down in this bog of gross, swampy water, and it's thick enough where you can't get out. But He's very proud with the fact that he can make his way across. He knows where to step and where not to step. And they hear a pony holler out as he's being sucked down into one of those horrible, horrible spots in the Grimpen Mire. After their conversation is over, um, they separate. Watson keeps going. And sorry, it's in my way. What does Stapleton's sister, Watson runs into Beryl, and she tells him to go back to London. Well, we find out that Beryl thinks, Beryl thinks that Watson is Henry. And when Watson tells her that he's not Henry, she's like, "Oh, just forget what I said." And he's like, "No, I can't forget because Henry's my friend, and you were very passionate about that he needs to go back to London. Why? Why?" So there's suspicion thrown on Beryl and what Beryl knows. All right, chapter 8, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gives us a little bit more background of the neighbors that live around Baskervilles Hall. We have a Mr. Franklin, and Franklin likes to start lawsuits just for the fun of it. Basically, he's a busybody. He's bored, and that's all he's got to do is just, have lawsuits going left and right. Sometimes he'd be for the townspeople, and sometimes he wouldn't. And in this chapter 8, these are uh, Watson is writing letters to Sherlock Holmes with updates that are going on at Baskerville Hall. Does Stapleton approve of Sir Henry and Beryl getting closer? No, but we really don't know why. He later tells us that he wasn't expecting Henry to fall in love with Beryl. Beryl's always been with him. He just, to please excuse him. He's sorry, but still, there's a little bit something fishy about this whole not approving Sir Henry because there's nothing bad about Sir Henry. He's got lots of money. He has no, past records of being a felon or being arrested or being a wild guy. So there's just suspicion here. We don't understand what's going on. All right, what does Watson see Barrymore doing at night? The butler, Barrymore. Well, they see him. He's walking around and he's going into a room, and he's actually going from room to room. And he's like, "What the heck is this guy doing? It's the middle of the night. What could he possibly be doing?" So this is what's happening in chapter 8. Chapter 9, we have the characters. We have the convict, which is Miss Barrymore's brother. We'll talk about a little bit more about that in just a minute. And the continuation of Watson's letter to Holmes. So Henry and Watson have both decided, okay, tonight we're going to follow Barrymore and find out exactly what he's doing. And what do they discover? They discover that Barrymore says he's going around at night making sure the windows are fastened, but they keep questioning him. And they discover he's actually signaling someone on the moor. Now you have to remember, it's just a candle. There's no electricity during this time period. There's no batteries. There's no flashlights. So he's using a candle, a very simple mechanism. All right, who is being signaled on the moor, and what is his relation? Well, I kind of answered that a minute ago. He's signaling in the escaped convict, who is Mr. Barrymore's brother, Selden. Selden is his name. And because Mrs. Barrymore is, she's the older sister, she's used to taking care of him, she has some sympathy for him. She's clothing him and she's providing him food. So, really, in this day and age, that would be aiding and abetting, and you would be arrested for doing that. So, apparently, during this time age, you could do that. All right, who else do Watson and Sir Henry see on the moor when they are chasing the convict? So they're running after this dude, and they pass somebody, and they discover, or they didn't really discover, all they can describe him as is a stranger. They don't know who he is. They don't know where he came from. Nobody knows who he is. He's tall and he's skinny, and they think he might be a soldier. So here we have suspicion placed onto someone else. Here's a clip of Sherlock. This is Cumberbatch playing Sherlock.
foggy mind, couldn't make much out.
I see. No witnesses, I suppose.
No, but
Never are.
oh, wait. There.
That it? Not exactly proof, is it? Sorry, John, I win.
Oh, wait, that's not all. People don't like going up there, you know. Oh, they gives them a bad sort of feeling.
Oh, do you want it? That's supposed to convince me.
Ah, don't be stupid, nothing like that. I reckon there is something out there. Something from Baskerville. Escape.
Clone. Superdog.
Maybe. God knows what they've been spraying on us all these years. All putting in the water. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could spit.
They're the best you've got.
I have made one to work for the Mandy. One weekend we were meant to go fishing, but he never showed up until late. When he did, he was white as a sheet. I can see it now. I've seen things to pay Fletch, he said. I never want to see again. Terrible things. He's been sent to some secret army place, porting down. Maybe Baskerville or somewhere else. In the labs there, the really secret labs, he said he'd seen terrible things. Rats as big as dogs, he said. Dogs. Dogs the size of horses.
Okay. That's the end of that. So that is the second class on the Hound of the Baskervilles, chapter 5 through 9.